So just recently, someone asked me the obvious question, which was, why don't I use a pick? And so I thought it'd be interesting to go into some of the detail behind that, some of the background, why I don't anymore. Now, historically, I've played the classical guitar. When I started playing the guitar when I was small, I was 6, 7, 8, something like that. I was classically trained, and I've had classical guitar lessons from then off and on up till when I graduated from university. But the electric guitar was something that really interested me, and when I was 12 or 14 or something, I bought my first electric guitar. And from that point of view, I'm self-taught, but obviously I have this technique behind me as well. But one of the things I found early on was that the two guitars didn't really support each other. So if I practiced the electric guitar, then my classical guitar technique would suffer. If I practiced my classical guitar, my electric guitar technique would suffer. So they weren't really supporting each other. So I thought I'd see if I could do something about that. And what I did was to start playing fingerstyle on the electric guitar and see how that helped. Now, interestingly, I found it didn't help that much. Because the two guitars are very different animals, and the analogy I like to give is it's kind of like playing squash, and it's like playing tennis as well. The two sports are kind of similar, and from a fitness point of view, from a basic technique, moving yourself around the court, I'm sure they support each other. But when you get into it, when you start to really dig into the two techniques, they're completely different animals. And the same's true with the electric guitar and the classical guitar as well. But the other thing I realised was that the fingerstyle technique was all focused on the acoustic guitar. It was all about playing with the strengths and the weaknesses of the acoustic guitar and bringing out certain tones and bringing out volume and things like that. There was no technique focused on the electric guitar as well. And that was one of the things that really interested me. And interestingly, it's if you look at how the acoustic guitar techniques changed over the years as well, especially with the introduction of amplification, you're seeing new forms coming out where people are doing things like percussive acoustic guitar, which is really playing on the amplification. You can play on compression, you can use echo and things like that, and people are using that to invent sort of new guitar styles, which I find really kind of interesting. And if you look at other musical forms, if you look at voice, for example, before the introduction of the microphone, the predominant singing technique was an operatic singing technique, just purely because if you're singing in an opera house, you're having to make yourself heard over an orchestra, you're having to fill the concert hall, and you're having to do that night after night after night. And one of the reasons why opera singers sound like they do is because they're having to deal with those kinds of physical constraints. But when the microphone was invented, when amplification was invented, they could start to play around with other vocal techniques and allow the microphone to build the volume up. But anyway, from an electric guitar technique, the thing I find really kind of exciting is that this is a greenfield area. Playing fingerstyle on the electric guitar, very few people are doing it, which means it's very easy for me to take it in directions that just haven't been explored before. And actually, that's one of the things I try and do with this channel as well, is if you have a look at the mix of lessons and the mix of videos that I do, there's a combination of stuff which is applicable to anyone, whether you use a pick or whether you play fingerstyle. I talk about practice techniques and I talk about scales and things like that. But I also like to talk about new techniques, new things that I've discovered playing fingerstyle on the electric guitar. And that's what excites me about playing the electric guitar, and that's why I play fingerstyle.